Ever since I planted these crops, they've been nothing but problems. Today, I'm going to share with you 7 crops I would never grow again. For most backyard gardeners, space is the limiting factor. I don't want you to waste your space, and I especially don't want you to waste your precious time. That is why I suggest you never grow the Flying Dragon Hardy Orange tree. When I first got this tree, I was thinking, wow, I could grow a citrus in New Jersey with no covering and it could survive the whole winter. That's amazing. Reality set in soon after that, and I realized that this tree is not all that I hoped it would be. First off, look at the spikes on this thing. It's literally a danger to be around. You wouldn't want to plant this anywhere besides on the edge of your garden, or you could possibly brush up against it and get cut or even fall into the thing. It's actually dangerous. I remained patient after I planted it though, thinking this will be worth it after it fruits, surely. Well, a few years later, the fruit came. You can see some right here. At this stage, it looks promising, but as this ripens, it becomes a major letdown. The fruit has big seeds in it and it's super bitter. There's not much you could do with the fruit besides using it in marmalades and preserves. This fruit is not something you would want to eat without processing it first. The sad truth is that the hardy orange is really a trifoliate orange, and it's better as an ornamental or as a rootstock than it is as an edible. It took me years to realize that this is a poor edible, so don't be like me. Don't waste your time and space growing this orange tree. Let's keep things spiky and move over to another fruit I would never plant again. You won't find it growing in my garden now because I never planted it again after growing it the first time. The crop that I'm talking about is the African horned melon. On this plant, it's not the branches that are spiky, but instead the fruit is spiky. When I first went out to harvest it, I put on some serious gear because this thing is no joke. The plant grew really well and was super resilient. One of the bad parts though is it takes a long time. So it's like 100 days from seed to harvest. And then once you actually do get the fruit, you need to wait for it to turn like a dark orange color before eating it. I was not a huge fan of the flavor of the fruit, and even Tuck seemed to pass it up, which told me that this is not a crop that we should be growing. I can see this plant having its place in certain climates, but if you're a backyard gardener like me, it's just not worth the space. Instead, I suggest you grow something like this right here. This is the Mexican sour gherkin, also known as the cucamelon. This plant grows similar to the African horned melon, super vigorous, good disease resistance. It's like an unstoppable plant. The thing is, it sets fruit earlier. You can see these cool little melons. And in my opinion, they have a much better flavor. Another cool thing about this fruit is it seems to come back every single year. I planted this thing one time. Every year it comes back. A bunch of young plants pop out of the ground. I let one grow and it just, every year in the same spot, keeps coming back. So it's almost like a perennial where you plant it once and it just keeps coming back. It's a great little thing, and I think it's a much better choice than the African horned melon. And they have a nice crunch to them too. While we are on the theme of spiked crops, let's move over to the next plant I would never grow again. This one is the Jujube tree. This tree has spikes on it when it's young, but as they mature, the prominence of the thorns decreases. You can still see a few thorns on this tree though. The Jujube trees tend to get large. The 2 trees that I have right here are over like 15 or 20 feet. This one is the Lee. It has relatively large fruit and it's self-fertile. The roots of this tree shoot out suckers, and the plant is constantly trying to spread out and move to more locations. It can be a bit tedious to go around and have to dig up all these suckers with a spade. Often called the Chinese date, the Jujube fruit, you want to wait for it to go from like a green to a reddish brown before harvesting. Then you could eat it fresh. It has a similar texture and kind of a similar taste to an apple. What you can do is you can also bring it inside and let it dry out. Then it shrivels up a little bit and it gets sweeter and it has a resemblance to a date. That's where it gets that name, the Chinese date. It's not that I don't like the flavor of the fruit, it's just not something I like really look forward to eating that much. Notice right down below me, check it out, we got Tuck here, hanging out in the garden. This guy's just relaxing. I'm sitting blocking some of the sun and he's just sitting in the shade. The little boss is always out here. He's always working hard. He might seem like he's resting, but Really, he's just, looking out for the garden, making sure nothing sneaks in. Spam some hearts down low if you love seeing the little boss in the videos. Another thing is that the Jujube trees are expensive, especially even compared to something like an apple tree. For instance, I can order an apple tree online that's like a 4 to 5 foot tree for $54. That same size tree of a Jujube is like $70. I would much prefer to grow an apple like this, the Honeycrisp apple. This is an older one on a dwarf rootstock. I also have a young apple tree that I planted a few years ago that's loaded with fruit. These trees have no spikes. They taste better. They're easier to manage, and overall, just a better tree in my opinion. You can't go wrong with planting something like the Liberty apple either. This one's only $54 when you order it online, and look how loaded with fruit this tree is. Another crop I would never grow again is the autumn olive. These ones aren't spiky, but they grow super fast and can become invasive in certain locations. Look at the size of these plants here. They are tough to keep up, and they grow rapidly because they're in the Elaeagnus family. They form a symbiotic relationship with bacteria, and as a result of that, can form their own nitrogen. That's what makes them grow so fast. In my opinion, the fruit does not taste good, like at all. It's a little too tart, and it has these little silver specks on it. That's probably why they call it the silver berry. It's a good source of food for birds, but when it comes to like eating it fresh and even using it in jellies and jams, it's not something I'm ever excited about using. You can see all the fruit on this plant here. They are super productive, but because of how large these plants get and their invasive style of growth, also the fact that the fruit is so tart, in my opinion, it's not something that really has a place in a backyard garden setting. Right here is the Aronia berry. This might be the best of the worst crops that I'm sharing with you today. It might not be saying much, but at least it's something. The bush is a beautiful plant and would be a great option if you live in an area where they aren't really keen on you growing edibles, a location that has like an HOA or something. One thing that I don't like about the fruit is that you can't eat it fresh. Like, it has to be processed. This fruit, also known as the chokeberry, is super astringent when you try to eat it raw. It's probably why they call it the chokeberry, because the stringency of it gives you that like dry, chalky, weird feeling in your mouth. And that's gotta be why they call it the chokeberry. Not something you want to eat unprocessed. The Aronia is in the rose family, and the fruit is known for its extremely high level of antioxidants. It almost makes me rethink if this thing is actually worth planting, but in my opinion, if you're in a spot that has limited space, I would suggest you grow something like the blueberry instead. They have similar bush-like qualities. Both can double as edible landscaping. Both have berries and they look similar, and both of them have high level of antioxidants. So the Aronia berry isn't the worst plant to grow, but if you have limited space, it's definitely not the best. Look at the size of this tree. This thing is massive. It might look nice, but it's another crop I would never grow again. I have been growing this Japanese raisin tree for over 7 years now, and I've never gotten fruit. I've actually never even seen it fruit. But the funny thing about this is, on this tree, it's not even the fruit that's edible. It's the stalks that connect the fruit to the branches. That's the edible part. I have read that the edible part of the plant is called the peduncles, and that it has a sweet raisin-like flavor to it. That's where it gets its name, the Japanese raisin tree. Overall, I mean, it's a nice looking tree. The leaves are beautiful. They have a nice deep green color to them. But the tree just gets way too large for a backyard setting. And the crop, I mean, I've yet to get one, but it's not something that I think is super worth it if you're in a location that has like a relatively small backyard. There's just so many better options. The final crop I would never grow again is a plant that I just do not like, and you won't find it growing in my garden anymore. Some of the plants that I told you not to plant, I still allow them to grow in the garden. They have their space, they're established, so they can stay. But when it came to the goji berry, that thing had to go. I know it's a superfood and is high in antioxidants and also vitamins, but in my opinion, it just wasn't worth having in the ground. It's really annoying to grow. It's constantly trying to like lay down and reroot itself and expand, and it's hard to get rid of it, even when you want to take it out. Another thing is, the fruiting was so spotty for me. 1 year it would fruit, and then it might go like 2-3 years of not fruiting. I just couldn't understand why it was so like finicky when it came to fruiting. Even when it did fruit, I would taste the fruit and eat it fresh, and I did not like the flavor at all. To me, it tasted like a bad tomato, which makes sense because it's also in the nightshade family. I know people say that if you dry it out, it tastes sweeter and tastes better. But overall, I mean, it's probably one of the crops that I disdain growing more than any other, for all the reasons I share with you, but I don't know, maybe there's just something else about it. It's something I would never ever grow again. When it comes down to it, sometimes crops are rare or uncommon for a reason, besides just being like hard to store and ship, or maybe hard to sell in a store. Sometimes they're just not worth growing. The idea for this video was not to discourage you from planting things or even discourage you from planting rare things. It was just to encourage you to plant things that will be worth the time and the space that you set aside for them. What I don't want to happen is what has happened to me with a few of these is you set aside a space for them, you give them like 4 years, they finally fruit, and then at the end of it, you feel like you wasted like 4 years of time and also that location growing something that you don't even know what to do with it anymore. You don't even want it. There are a number of rare fruits and uncommon ones that you can grow that are definitely worth the time. One of them is the persimmon tree. I love the persimmons, especially the American one. It has to reach a point of frost before it's actually ready to eat, and they get super soft and super jelly-like, and they're so sweet on the inside. It tastes like honey, and the texture is just awesome. Another one is the pawpaw tree. This is another one that's native to North America. It's a rare tree. You won't find them in stores. The trees can get large, but the fruit is like nothing you've ever had before. It's super unique and it has a good flavor to it, and it's just a really fun one to grow. Another one is the ground cherry. This one you grow as an annual. It is really unique. It has like these little like casings around the fruit, and you could just pop them in your mouth after you take the casing off. It's super sweet, they have a nice flavor to them, and it's just a fun one to grow, and it's not something you would commonly see in any of the stores. Another fun one you can try to grow is the gooseberry. These ones taste pretty good, fresh, a little tart, but still not a bad flavor to them, and they're good for like pies and stuff. It's not the greatest tasting edible, but it's still a lot better than the other ones that I shared, in my opinion. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Me and Tuck had a blast out here. He's still chilling in the shade, always finds his spots. He's a beast. Just a great guy overall. Me and Tuck wanted to thank everyone for being a part of Team Grow and to encourage everyone to get some stuff planted in your backyard. Just maybe don't plant some of the stuff that I shared with you, especially if it's like some of your first things that you're getting in the ground. Some things are common, and that's a good thing. Like apples, I can never have too many apples. Grapes, those are fantastic. Blueberries, strawberries, start with the basics and then get into some other things that are a bit rare, just to encourage you to get outside more and grow more. Me and Tuck wanted to mention to share this video with your friends and then hit the like button and also subscribe. When you share this video, you're helping build Team Grow. The idea is you share this video, that person starts growing, and then they share what they're doing with other people, and eventually the whole country is filled with gardens in the backyards, and we're all growing a better future together. Me and Tuck wanted to send a thank you to one of our new channel members, Lady White. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. Let me and Tuck know if there's any edibles that we missed that you think people should not be growing, and then also let us know if we're wrong in your opinion about some of these edibles, why you think they're worth the space in a backyard garden. Tuck and James will be back again real soon. We